Man, right off the bat, this is some touchy ass shit. Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. This is a topic that is definitely going bananas on social media right now. There's a lot of people saying Black Lives Matter over All Lives Matter and vice versa. And my thing about it is, if all lives matter, then Black lives should matter. And if Black Lives Matter, especially when you talk about an organization, what happens? Are we as Black people happy with the Black Lives Matter movement? Is the Black Lives Matter movement doing what it is that the Black Lives Matter movement is supposed to be? Do we feel like the Black Lives Matter movement is proactive or reactive? So I'm going to give you some of my thoughts. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Y'all go ahead, hit the share, and definitely invite some people in. Now, here's the thing. Being an Army veteran, being around all nationalities, going to Iraq, going to Afghanistan, just being around a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, you meet some good people. You meet some good white people, some good Hispanic people, some good Black people, and then again, you meet some bad people. You meet some bad white people, some bad Hispanic people, and some bad Black people. So when you say all lives matter, I get it and I understand it. But I also understand a need to basically pronounce and promote Black Lives Matter. But here's the thing. Black Lives Matter has to matter to Black people. That means you have to be unified. That means when one person speaks, everyone then unites and move forward. Right now, the uniformity for Black Lives Matter is just not there. It's just not there. And I'm so upset at the fact that Black Lives Matter is so reactive. We're so reactive when we talk about Black Lives Matter instead of being proactive. I'm tired of seeing Black bodies, and then that's when we need to talk about it. Real shit. I'm tired of seeing Black people murdered, and then that's when Black Lives Matter. Because if I'm the opposition and I just hate Black people, it's like this. I know that every time I see a Black Lives Matter poster, that means somebody else done died. Check for the opposition. Hooray for the opposition. However, the thing about it is, how proactive is the Black Lives Matter organization? Do we see the Black Lives Matter organization in our schools? Do we see it at the churches? Do we see it at the supermarkets? Do we see it at the TV? Somebody told me that the Black Lives Matter movement is oversaturated. That means if you're a Black person, that you have access to all the things that white people have. So why do you need to stand up, beat your chest, and scream that Black Lives Matter? And that kind of puzzled me for a second. Because I said, okay, well, do we have access to the same knowledge that our Caucasian and Hispanic counterparts have, our Asian counterparts have, our Arab counterparts have? So that's a good ass question. Do we have access to that same information? Do we know how to buy houses? Do we know how to buy cars? Do we know how to open up businesses? Do we know about education principles and practices and all that good stuff? So if we have access to this, what is holding the Black community back? That's the conversation. I was listening to a person today, they're live or whatever case to be, and said, they were talking about having the difficult conversation. And y'all know I talk about having a tough conversation. So I'm glad that, there are people out there having the conversation and promoting that. The fact of the matter is, are Black people having the tough conversations in their communities? That means the same way that we protest and the same thing that we digest in reference to police brutality, are we talking about cleaning up our neighborhoods? That means we want our neighborhoods rid of drugs. We want our neighborhoods rid of violence. We want our neighborhoods rid of anything that's going to hold the Black community back. My question is, what is Black Lives Matter doing to clean up these neighborhoods? Or is it only important to scream that Black Lives Matter when somebody dies? See, that's the fallacy in that. That's the fallacy in that. When you look at someone and say, okay, the only time that Black Lives Matter can speak out is when it's against a white person. That limits our reach, that limits our creativity. Because my thing about it is, if we're talking about a movement, this movement should be able to bring education to the black community, should be able to encourage fathers to go back home, to be able to influence the police department and legislation to actually change the law so that way we can actually promote and protect ourselves in these communities. What stops a person from leaving a bad community? Opportunity. 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 We talk about revamping the Black Lives Matter movement. What stops a person that lives in an urban community from leaving the community? Opportunity. Somebody would say, well, what type of fucking opportunity are you talking about? And my thing about it is, it's like this. Here's the thing. I understand that a lot of people nowadays, they can do the research. If you want to find out, how to build your credit, how to open up a business, how to, get better housing, et cetera, you do your research. But the thing about it is, when you haven't been taught to move in a certain way, then you don't move in a certain way. You don't look for that information. That information could be staring you right in the face, but you don't access that information because it hasn't been made important to you. Based on what community you live in, that's what is held as values and standards for that community. I'm from the hood, right? And I can tell you that having good credit was not top 5 in the hood. I can tell you that right now. So with that being said, who is teaching this community about better credit? How do you move out of a situation when you don't understand the opportunities that you have available? And that's where Black Lives Matter come in. That's where the organization should come in and say, you know what? This is what we should do. This is where we should be targeting at. Let's talk to the black people. I think that Black Lives Matter, it's important, but they lose me. They lose me. And the reason why they lose me is because it's so geared upon demanding everyone else say that Black Lives Matter versus ensuring that we demand that black people understand how Black Lives Matter, why Black Lives Matter. You can't talk about, look at all of these killings in Chicago. How could there be killings in Chicago of black people when we screaming Black Lives Matter? At one end of the conversation, we're talking about police brutality and how fucked up the situation is. All of these men who've died, whether they want to talk about a criminal past or whether they want to talk about a motherfucking character, whatever the case may be, the fact of the matter is we as black people are screaming and hollering about police brutality, and rightfully so. But the fact is at the other spectrum, we ain't talking about our communities. We're not talking about cleaning our communities up. And some people say, well, you're meshing two conversations together. No, goddammit. What I'm putting together is a elongated sentence with a lot of commas in it. Let's talk police brutality, but also talk black community. Because if Black Lives Matter, then education should matter. Fathers being in a home, being role models, protectors, and providers should matter. So if we talking Black lives, let's talk about the education system. Let's talk about making sure that when men get pulled over, that's not going to be the last thing that they see is flashing lights. If we're not having the difficult conversation, the tough conversation, the hard conversation, then who should talk about it? Because we're going to give CandaceOwens some flack if she mentions it. We're going to give anybody else that's conservative flack if they mention it. But who has the ability to mention it? And that's why I said the revamping of Black Lives Matter is so important, because they have to be the one to come to the black community and say, hey, black community, let's talk about it. Now, I actually got into a little spizzat, you know what I mean? Where someone says, well, black people have the tough conversations. Where you been, brother? Okay, so let me respond to them very professionally. Shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. This is not what we used to have. This is not a conversation that you had in the gym somewhere. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. Yeah, we should fix this. I'm talking about actually putting your mouth in action to work. to work. Because here's the thing, if Black Lives Matter, think about all since Trayvon Martin and before. Think about all the people that have passed away in such these heinous crimes or whatever case may be. Think about all of the rules and regulations and SOPs and guidelines that we could have already had in place if Black Lives Matter. How many people are tired of seeing Black Lives Matter only at funerals? Only when something heinous happens to Black people. How long do you keep on having the same conversation before you say we need to throw some other stuff into the mix? Should Black Lives Matter, the organization, be revamped? I say yes. I say yes. I say our focal point should be on several things at one time, ensuring that we have the conversation. And that's what I'm saying. We get a calendar. And we sit down and say, on this day, we're going to talk about this. On this day, we're going to talk about this. And we have this 30-day calendar. And guess what? We set benchmarks. We set benchmarks. So therefore, we know, okay, we tackled education. We tackled single parents. We tackled Planned Parenthood. We tackled education. We are tackling the things that matter to the Black community. Because here's the thing. If the Black community fixes themselves, they don't have to worry about demanding respect from everyone else, because at the end of the day, you're going to respect. You got to respect it because you're giving them something to respect. You're showing that Black people are unified. Black people are not only educated, but they're putting that education to work. Revamping Black Lives Matter is a must. Make sure that you have the conversation and make sure that you continue to share information that promotes having the tough conversation. This is Mario J. This is Tough Love. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Hey, adult up.